The Forgotten House on Black Hill. It was night, a cold and starless night in late autumn. The wind howled through the bare, desolate trees, making dry leaves dance on the ground. My cousin Sarah and I walked down the narrow, winding path leading to Black Hill. From a distance, the hill resembled a large black hat placed upon a barren landscape. Atop the hill, an old abandoned house stood out, a house with broken windows and weathered walls that, under the faint moonlight, looked like a sleeping, living entity. The dry branches of the trees surrounding the house tapped against the glass like skeletal fingers, creating an eerie sound. All the residents of our small town avoided this house. Many stories were told about it, tales of people disappearing, of madness, and of wandering spirits. But we, with youthful arrogance and boundless curiosity, had decided to spend the night in this house. It was a foolish bet between us and a few friends. We had to stay in the house until dawn and bring back proof of our presence, like a photograph. But deep down, I felt this was more than just a game.
With our phone flashlights our only source of light, we approached the broken, rotting wooden door. The door opened with a mournful creak from its hinges, as if it had been waiting for us for years. The pungent smell of mold, accumulated dust, and something resembling dried blood or decaying flesh filled our nostrils. The air was strangely heavy, stagnant and cold air that burned my lungs with every breath. With every step we took, the creaking of the wooden floorboards beneath our feet broke the deadly silence of the house and echoed in every corner. Sarah, who was always braver and more reckless than me, whispered excitedly, "Wow, this is great! Exactly like a horror movie." But I didn't have a good feeling. There was a strange chill in the air, worse than the cold outside, a chill that seemed to penetrate my bones and shake me to the core. We entered the main hall. The hall was vast and dark. A large, rusty chandelier hung from the ceiling, its broken glass pieces staring at us under the faint light of our flashlights, like soulless eyes. Old, tattered furniture, covered in dusty white sheets, resembled sitting ghosts waiting. On the plaster walls, damp stains appeared like terrifying faces. Suddenly, Sarah's flashlight began to flicker, its light weakening and strengthening. "What bad luck! The battery's dying," she said, trying to fix it by shaking her phone. But I knew it wasn't just a simple accident. My flashlight's light also began to dim, plunging the hall into deeper darkness.
As we slowly walked towards the winding wooden staircase that led to the winding floor, I heard a very faint whisper, a sound that seemed to come from far away, calling my name. "Did you hear that?" I asked Sarah. Sarah turned her head. "Hear what?" "A sound. It sounded like it called my name, very softly." Sarah gave a nervous laugh that was more like panting. "I think you're imagining things from all those stories you've heard and scared yourself with. But I was sure I heard it. The sound of that whisper had pierced my ear like an icy needle." When we reached the upstairs, a dark and long hallway stretched before us, with many doors opening into it. Old wooden doors with faded paint and rusty handles. All the doors were closed, except for one at the end of the hallway, which was slightly ajar, as if someone had deliberately left it half open for us. The wind from an unknown source rattled the closed doors, and a faint tapping sound echoed in the silent hallway. Every moment, I expected something to jump out from behind the doors. Suddenly, one of the doors slammed shut with a loud boom. The sound of the door closing, in the deadly silence of the hallway, was more terrifying than any scream. We both jumped. Sarah let out a stifled scream and covered her mouth. My heart pounded against my chest like a hammer. "Maybe it was the wind," Sarah said with a trembling, muffled voice. But no windows were open in the hallway. In fact, all the upstairs windows were tightly shut and even nailed with wooden boards. As we walked towards the open door at the end of the hallway, a strong, sweet scent of dried flowers reached our nostrils. A thick, stale smell that differed from the moldy and dusty scent of the house. We entered the room. It was an old bedroom with a large wooden bed and antique built-in wardrobes whose doors were slightly ajar. On the nightstand, a full-length mirror was covered with a black cloth. But what caught our attention the most was an old porcelain doll sitting on the dressing table. Its blue eyes, with a lifeless and fixed gaze, seemed to stare directly into one's soul.
As I looked at the doll, I felt its eyes move. For a moment, it seemed to me that a faint smile appeared on its porcelain face. No, it was just an illusion. Or maybe not? Sarah stared at the doll in terror. That doll wasn't here before. But then, a soft, high-pitched laugh was heard from behind us. A cold, sinister laugh that sent shivers down one's spine and froze my very marrow. We turned around. No one was there. But the room door, which we had left open, was now tightly closed. And the sound of laughter, this time louder, clearer, and closer, was heard again. This time from inside the old wooden wardrobe in the corner of the room. Sarah said with horror, "This is no joke anymore. This is real. We have to go." Her voice trembled with fear. As we ran towards the doorknob began to turn. No, not from the outside, from the inside. And then the door swung open with incredible force. A cold, invisible wind swept past us. It wasn't just wind, it was something palpable. A tall, thin shadow emerged from inside the wardrobe and stood in front of the door. A shadow in the shape of a woman with long, disheveled hair. We couldn't see her face. It was just a tall, dark figure standing against the faint moonlight streaming through the dirty window. I felt as if she was looking at us, with eyes we couldn't see, but whose presence we felt.
Our screams echoed in the silence of the house, shaking us to our very core. We started running. We rushed out of the room and hurried down the stairs. The sound of our footsteps was like thunder in the silent house. With every step down, we felt that shadow coming after us. We felt her cold breaths on the back of our necks and her bony hands that could fall on our shoulders at any moment. When we reached the hall, the main door of the house, which had been open before, was now tightly shut. And on the floor, drawn with something resembling dried blood, was a strange, eerie symbol. A symbol that looked like a circle with obscure lines in its center. Sarah cried and trembled. "We're trapped! We're trapped! There's no way out!" We tried to open the door, but it was locked. No matter how hard we pushed, the door wouldn't budge. It was as if it had been sealed from the inside by an invisible force. The woman's laughter, this time from the top of the stairs, from the very spot we had fled, reached our ears. We looked up. That shadow stood at the top of the stairs, looking at us. It seemed to be enjoying our fear. For a moment, I felt I could see her face, a gaunt face with sunken eyes and a mouth opened in a sinister smile. Suddenly, all our flashlights went out. Absolute darkness. A darkness that seemed to swallow all sounds as well. Only the faint moonlight from the dirty windows dimly lit the way, casting terrifying shadows on the walls. And then it began. The sound of slow, heavy footsteps from the top of the stairs coming towards us. Tap, tap, tap. Each step closer. Each step more terrifying. I could feel Sarah's heavy, trembling breaths beside me. I was holding her hand tightly, as if my life depended on it. The footsteps stopped, right in front of us. I could clearly smell the mold and the sweet scent of dried flowers, a smell now mingled with the stench of decay and death. I felt something cold and bony touch my hair. A cold, icy whisper echoed in my ear. "You are mine forever."
At that moment, a crazy thought, a spark of hope came to my mind. That doll, the porcelain doll. Maybe that was the key. I remembered old stories that said spirits could be trapped in certain objects. I pushed Sarah. "Run, go back upstairs, the doll." Sarah looked at me with wide, tear-filled eyes. "Are you crazy? You want to go back there? Just run, that doll, we have to take it," I yelled. With all our might, we fled from that terrifying shadow and ran back towards the stairs. The woman's laughter, this time from behind us, followed us. Laughter that was now mixed with ear-splitting screams and moans like the wind. When we reached the doll's room, the door was open. The doll was still on the table, but this time its head was strangely tilted and a sinister, fixed smile was on its face, as if inviting us. Sarah, with unprecedented courage, picked up the doll. As she lifted the doll from the table, a loud scream was heard from inside the walls, a scream of pain, rage, and despair that shook the entire house. The whole house began to tremble. Window panes shattered. The chandelier fell from the ceiling and crashed to the floor with a mighty sound. Furniture began to move. Books fell from the shelves. It was as if the house itself was falling apart. "Run!" I screamed. With the doll in our hands, we ran out of the room and down the stairs. This time, the main door of the house swung open with a loud boom. It was as if the house wanted to throw us out, as if the curse, with the doll gone, had been broken. Without a moment's hesitation, we ran out the door and, without looking back, rushed down Black Hill at full speed. The cold autumn wind was no longer as terrifying as before. When we reached the street and saw the city lights, we finally managed to breathe. Our hearts were pounding like sparrows. Our clothes were torn and dirty, and our hair was disheveled. Sarah was still clutching the doll tightly. The doll no longer had that sinister smile and just looked like an old doll. That night, we escaped from that haunted house, but the shadow of that woman and her laughter remained in our minds forever, and never, ever again did we go near Black Hill and the forgotten house. That doll is now kept in a hidden chest in our house, a terrifying souvenir of a night we walked on the border between reality and nightmare.